Good evening. I know the bulletin said it's Brandon, but I'm on next, so. Anyway, so tonight's subject is one that is pretty large, maybe a little sensitive to some people. And there's possibly been some maybe abuse in this area as far as our culture is minded. So the subject I'm going to be looking into is music. And as I mentioned, it's pretty big and maybe a little sensitive in some areas of our lives. So is it important what kind of music we listen to? I only saw about 3 or 4 heads shaking yes, so okay, that's better. So yes, it is important. So the next question will be, why is it important? It affects us.
It affects us subconsciously.
Subconsciously.
What we feed on is what we become.
Correct. Any more?
Our bodies have a rhythm, and so I think the music with rhythm draws us to the music. I mean, we think about music, like it was said before, subconsciously, but because of our bodies having a rhythm, I think it's also why it does.
Any others?
Music is a method of worship.
Correct. We worship through music. Any other reasons? I found it interesting that you mentioned subconsciously because music has a very subtle effect on us. An effect that isn't always readily apparent to us. So anyway, so how does music affect us? I have a couple of quotes and stuff here that I'm going to be looking at. The first thing I'm going to cover is a science project that was done by David Merle, and some of you may or may not have seen this or heard about this. I'm not sure what year he did it, but he was a 16-year-old, and he decided to find out what effect that rock music was having on people. So what he did, he took 72 mice and divided them into 3 groups. And he did it down in his basement. I'm not exactly sure when he started putting them through a maze, but he had a maze that he had them go through. I don't know, he probably used some sort of bait to lure the mice through, and they had to find it. And he did this 3 times a week. Anyway, he started playing music to 2 of the groups. The one group he played hard rock, and the other group he played Mozart music. I don't know if you're familiar with that or not. More of a classical music. And the third one, he didn't play any music. So he put these through the maze, and initially it took him about 10 minutes to complete the maze on average. Anyway, after a while, the mice that had no music cut off 5 minutes of their maze running time, so that left about 5 minutes. They could do the maze in 5 minutes. The mice that were listening to the Mozart music cut off 8.5 minutes of their time. So that would have only left like 3.5 minutes. And for them to go through the maze. So anyone care to guess what happened with the hard rock mice? How much time did they cut off? Maybe someone knows.
They added time.
They added time. Do you know how much? They added 20 minutes. So it took them a total of 30 minutes to do the maze that initially had taken only 10 minutes to do. So, yes, music does have an effect. Obviously, this was mice, but the interesting part was he had experimented a year before with this project, but he had the mice from the different groups living together. You know, he had this group and this group and this group. He had them all in one group. Well, he had to cut his project short because the hard rock mice killed each other, and the others didn't. So yes, music has an effect on us. Mice, obviously, well, that's mice. What about people? I'm not exactly sure which year this was either, but maybe the name will ring a bell for some of you. But this name, there's a lady that was named Patty Hearst. And she was a regular, normal woman. And at the age of 19, she was kidnapped by the SLA Army, which was some, I didn't study into it what the SLA Army was, but not a good thing. Anyway, it wasn't long until this woman was out there robbing banks with this army, with an assault weapon and everything. She was right in there with them. And it confused some people, like, what happened to this woman? You know, how did they get her brainwashed in that way? There was probably some other things, but one of the things that they did is they locked her in a cell and played constant loud rock music. And yeah, in a relatively short time, she was brainwashed to where she thought that robbing a bank was a good idea. So yes, music has an effect. All right, we're talking about hard rock music, all of us, like, well, we pass that off, you know, that's bad, and it is bad. It is not good music. But there is some music that uses some of the hard rock style in them, most commonly referred to as contemporary Christian music. And that's the one that scares me. It's not the hard rock that scares me talking to a group like this. Now, I don't know what kind of music you listen to, but I trust there's no one here that's blatantly listening to secular hard rock music. If you are, consider changing. Jimi Hendrix, leader of a rock band, said, "You can hypnotize people with music, and when you get them to their weakest point, you can preach into their subconsciousness what we want to say." And there's a certain part of your brain that acts as your moral compass. And it controls your emotions or keeps your emotions in check. And that is one of the parts that is affected by this rock music. And very quickly, it basically bypasses, or it inhibits that part of your brain to where it no longer does its part, and it pours all this whatever in there after it's inhibited, and it also no longer, your emotions, your actions are no longer controlled by that. You know, if someone say something to you that upsets you, you might want to lash out. But that moral compass says, no, back off. Well, if that one isn't there, it's inhibited, you're going to lash out in a rage. And so this beat, the rhythm, and the rock music does exactly that. When you're actively thinking that, or if you're, most of the time you're in that stage where you're thinking, you're alert, but this music has an effect that relaxes that and it inhibits that moral compass, and subconsciously all that junk pours straight into your brain without any filtering. And so that being said, with this mixture of rock music and Christian music, the problem is the beat or the rhythm and all that inhibits your moral compass and it degrades it. It actually releases the same chemicals that drugs do in your brain. So that's why some music makes you feel good. It also releases chemicals that get you sensually aroused. So, and that is all in the music. The lyrics also play a part in that. So, I guess the next question I have for you is music immoral? In other words, music isn't necessarily good or evil depending on the music part of it, and it's only the lyrics, the words that matter. Is music immoral?
Does that word mean neutral? Is that?
In other words, a song is all right as long as we have Christian lyrics to it. The rhythm, the composure of the music doesn't matter unless there's bad lyrics to it.
Does good and evil mix?
Not that I've ever seen it. So apparently I've got you all scared to speak up, but no, lyrics do matter, but actually music matters more than the lyrics do. Because the music carries the message. You can have all the right words, good words, beautiful words, but if the music is of a wrong sense, that bears the message, not the words. And it likely will distract from the words as well. Professor Marshall McLuhan stated, "The medium is the message. That is to say, the music, its melody, harmony, and rhythm, all by itself disposes man to virtue or vice by moving the emotions. Therefore, the way in which they move the passions should serve as principal basis for judgment on whether any given piece of music is good or bad." And like I mentioned before, what happens in your brain, the chemicals that are released, it's not the words that are doing that. That's the rhythm, the music. It's doing that. And I'm not going to say that you can't feel good by listening to good music. That would go against the purpose of music, or one of the purposes of music. Graham Cray stated, "In all pop music, lyrics are secondary. Pop is music of feeling, spoken primarily to the body and only secondary to the intellect." So once again, you have this pop music, which is popular, which is, well, whatever. And it speaks to the body. It doesn't speak to the soul. And by the way, this was, as far as I know, I'm not exactly sure where some of these stand as far as being Christian or secular, but some of these quotes are coming from secular people. So people that know what they're doing. There is a motive behind rock music, and it is not a good motive. Robert Palmer stated, "I believe in the transformative power of rock and roll. This transformative power adheres not so much in the words of the songs, but in the music itself, in the sound, and above all, in the beat." The type of music that messes with your brain is the type of music that has many layers of rhythm and beat going on at the same time. And your brain's just going like this, and pretty soon it's just like you can't keep after. You have a lot of rhythm, there's a lot of different noises, and that's what it does. It speaks to your body, because how long can you listen to that without starting to really get into it? Not very long. So, yes, we need to have the correct medium to bear the message. So if we have a message of good lyrics, and we have the music conveying that message is rebellious or angry or whatever, it doesn't mix. Like Maynard mentioned, it doesn't mix. And the music will draw away from the words. Your attention will be on the music. You'll be thinking about the rhythm and the beat, and the words are just something passing by. One of the ways that we can do that, or just an illustration, I can go, "Bryce, Jesus loves you." Is the message true? Absolutely. Was the medium the right medium? No. That's what this music is doing. We have a good message, but Bryce, did you feel very comforted by that? Not very, no. So, I think it's pretty clear that music that's drawing away from the words, that's exactly what it does. It's bearing a message in itself, and it's not sanctifying, And it can be done in many other ways as well. It's what your mind picks up from the music. The way it is sung can be another way too, the vocals. Maybe more commonly seen on the countryside of it would be this croning into the microphone. It's like it gives you a sense of love for Jesus in the wrong way. Love for Jesus is good, but it gives you the feeling of essential love. And that's another way that it can bear a message in the wrong way. Mickey Hart, he was a drummer for Grateful Dead, which was a rock band, and he did quite a bit of studying on drums and their power, and he traveled pretty far, and he studied into this, and meant this was a drummer for a rock band. He was a secular person. It's hard to pinpoint the exact moment when I awoke to the fact that my music, my tradition, rock and roll, did have a spirit side, that there was a branch of the family that maintained the ancient connection between the drum and the gods. And if you really study into the rhythm and stuff, it's very very scary. Most of it is originated and very, actually, quite similar even today to the ancient, maybe not ancient, but the sound of African voodoo worship. They had the rhythms, they had the beating, they had everything going on, and that is what they used to connect to their gods. And so, once again, that same music, they're bringing it in and putting Christian lyrics to it. It doesn't match. So anyway, another way that we can, just to bring a point, is as you think of the way music stirs us or moves us in a certain way, is in like movies or videos or whatever, they have this certain kinds of music playing at this certain time, at the certain places, the certain scenes, and you know exactly what's happening. It may be suspense, or it may be a loud party atmosphere or something like that, but they're not using lyrics to convey that. It's the music. So anyway, moving on. So what should we be avoiding? I think I covered some of that already. One of the things that rock music uses a lot is syncopation. Does anyone know what that is? Maybe a few of you? Okay. So syncopation is every song has a rhythm and timing. So common time is 4/4 timing. It has a nice even flow. The beat, the accent is on the first and the third beat. You know, and it's a constant even flow of your music. Syncopation takes that beat and places it on the offbeat, completely opposite, and it gives a completely opposite effect. Your mind is programmed, you know, this steady rhythm, and then they switch it around, and it just gives a whole different role to the music. Or they may also skip a beat entirely, and that you're ready for that beat and they just miss it, and it just messes with you, so to speak. They place their accent on what would generally be the offbeat. Just for the demonstration on Jesus Loves Me, it'd be 1 and 3 would be Jesus loves me. They would take it, Jesus loves me. You know, it just gives it another whole different role to it. And I'm not saying that that is all wrong within its proper place in a short period of time to convey maybe a part of a song message. But rock uses it the whole way through, and they have their motive for it. I don't know what their complete motive is. Another thing, what is most prominent in your music? Is it melody or is it rhythm? Music has 3 main components: melody, harmony, and rhythm. And melody is basically the structure of it. Harmony basically just boosts the melody to where it's easier on the ears. You know, someone singing a solo and a 4-part harmony sounds different, but they're both doing the melody. And the rhythm is basically the flow, the way it moves through the speed and all that. Well, in rock music, or in contemporary Christian music as well, they switched it. Melody is at the top. That is what you want to hear. They switched it to where rhythm is at the top, and the first thing, the prominent part of the music is this rhythm, the drums or whatever. It doesn't have to be just drums. It can be guitars or whatever. But they bring that rhythm up to the front, up to the top, and the melody sinks down to the bottom. So now you have all this loud banging and whatever going on, and that is what's speaking to you first. Dr. David Elkind stated, "There is a great deal of powerful sexual stimulation in the rhythm of rock music." And that is exactly one of the drives in rock music. It's everywhere. And, you know, it's basically the driving part of it. And as we mentioned before, it was the rhythm, the drums that they used to connect with their voodoo gods. And by the way, rock music, secular rock music, is deeply seated in Satanism. If you haven't known that, I wasn't aware. I mean, I knew it was bad music. I wasn't listening to it, but as I studied into it, I just realized how bad the music was. It's deeply rooted in Satan worship. Anyway, the book, The Enjoyment of Music, states, "Rhythm is the element of music most closely allied to body movement," which would be fleshly, carnal movement, and to physical action. Its simpler patterns, when repeated over and over, which is exactly what rock does, can have a hypnotic effect on us. So this music can have this effect, and we add Christian lyrics to it, and we think it's good music. Now, I'm not saying that all contemporary music is bad, but be very careful. What is the message? What is the music lining up with the lyrics? Is the way that it's conveyed, is it biblical? And by the way, a cappella can have some of the same things. There can be some rhythm, there's a beat, there's a whatever, so just throwing that out there. So, does your music draw your attention to God, or does it draw it to something else? Is your focus on worship and you're in the spirit of worship, or is it focused on the beat and drawing you to feelings of, oh, this music makes me feel pretty good, you know, or any other carnal, fleshly lusts? So anyway, I'd like to hear from you all. How do you determine which music that you think is good and not good? Maybe I should have asked that first. You're all scared to speak up now. No one ever considered the thought? I sure hope. And by the way, I'm not going to try to be too hard on anyone that doesn't see it. That there's a lot of opinions about music out there, but I'd like to hear your opinions. We need to visit the subject so that we can be aware of what it can do.
You could sing us a solo and demonstrate.
Demonstrate what good music is.
Right.
that choice would be maybe a little too easy. So when you, let's say you discover some new music or maybe a new album from an artist or whatever, and you listen to it, what do you go by to determine if this is something that I want to keep or if this is something I want to throw in the trash?
Well, one simple thing is can you understand what they're saying?
Amen. You need to be able to understand the words first, and then they need to be good words, which I trust most of us would be buying music that would have the good words, but can you understand what they're saying, singing? Very good.
I think a picture of the artist tells you a lot too.
It does, yes. There's actually some contemporary Christian artists that have a picture of themselves on their covers with a satanic symbol on their clothing or whatever. So that that should be pretty easy.
I guess one thing I think about when they start singing, if it's a bunch of extra slurs or a little bit off-key, I tend to pass it on. I don't like that kind of music, whether or not it's wrong.
I think we all have our personal tastes on to what kind of music we like and whether right or whether it's good music or not. I think we all have a tendency to maybe like a certain type of music, not necessarily that the other types are all wrong. Any other thoughts?
This may be personal taste, but I tend to avoid anything that has a hard driving beat. I don't know if it's just personal taste or what, but I just don't feel that has any part of the Christian's music tastes.
And a study on that has revealed that hard driving beat actually wears you down, which shouldn't be a surprise, but initially it might make you feel good, but your body gets stressed by that.
I like music that brings my being, I guess, my soul toward God and brings rest to my spirit.
Very good, and I think that is a very key in determining if this music is good or not. Where are my thoughts going? What am I feeling being drawn to God, or am I just feeling good in the flesh? Another thing I'd just like to throw out there is if we're struggling spiritually, check your music. Is music the only thing you need to check? No, but it's one of the things I think that we need to check, because for most of us, music plays a decent part of our lives. I mean, that varies from person to person how much, but we need to check that critically if we're struggling spiritually.
I'm not sure that I'm qualified to speak about music because I hardly listen to music anymore. But I grew up listening to Southern Gospel. And I think some of it is good, but probably a lot of it is more entertaining than what I would have liked to admit back in the day. Just not sure.
And I think probably some of that would also include some of the rhythms and things that I was talking about here. It doesn't have to be class is contemporary or whatever, to have all those rhythms and stuff going on that messes with your head.
I can appreciate how you explained it. It is a very new way for me to look at it. I appreciate what you shared tonight.
Psalm 96, 1-2 says, "Oh, sing unto the Lord a new song. Sing unto the Lord all the earth. Sing unto the Lord, bless his name. Show forth his salvation from day to day." Does your music bless his name? You know, we are worshiping when we play music, or listen to music, make music. We are worshiping. And if we're listening to the wrong kind of music, we're worshiping the wrong spirit. And the other thing is, if you have some music from a certain artist, and there's maybe some new music coming out, analyze each song, because not every song from every artist is okay. You say, oh, this artist so-and-so, this is good music, go ahead. It's good stuff. Critically analyze each song to where we're at. And the other thing is I like to throw out to parents, know what your children are listening to. I know that might be a hard thing to do. I don't have experience with that, but know what your children are listening to, because there's types of music out there that will draw a person away from God probably rather quickly if they get caught up in it. So anyway, I think our time is up, but yeah, analyze your music and consider its effect on you and how it makes you feel. Another resource, and this was shared a little bit by someone on their status, is called The Distraction Dilemma. And if you really want to get deep into how music affects you, I got quite a bit of my information from them, is Christian Berdal with his series of Distraction Dilemma. There's 10 episodes that are each at least an hour long. There's a lot of information, and not everyone would find it interesting, but it is a lot of good information in that. So you can find them on YouTube. I also do have a recording on flash drive if someone would prefer that route as well. So anyway, with that, I guess that's all I have.